But I mean, we see a lot of people that I see that are ex-vegan vegetarian that will say that they developed arthritis, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, all these things by going, or at least they think by going plant-based. Now, some of the plant-based vegan doctors would say, no, it's not that. It's the junk food and the mac and cheeseitarian. No one's going to consider that a good diet. So, when did you decide or discover that I'm going to stop doing this vegetarianism, and how did it change?
I was working with my mentor, who I mentioned earlier, who was just a phenomenal naturopathic physician who was deeply entrenched in musculoskeletal work. That was predominantly what he did in practice. And I came down the first year working for him. I came down with autoimmune disease, and it first presented itself. I felt incredibly unwell. I'd always been kind of sickly, but I was getting really sickly at this point, and I was, probably 10 years into being a vegetarian, and I developed ITP, which is, for your audience here, it's a autoimmune disorder where your body attacks your platelets and you can't clot. So that was happening for no apparent reason. And I kept getting tested and my platelets kept plummeting. And then I was developing all kinds of, I had been struggling with rashes. I had a bout at that point of uveitis in my eyes, which is, the harbinger of terrible autoimmune conditions to come. And all of this was adding up to me sort of spiraling out of control. I was still chain smoking, and my mentor pulled me aside and he said, you can't, you're 24. This is 23 at the time. He's like, this is a disaster. Your toes are purple. Your skin's a mess. I had acne and little prickly heat rash all over my body. Chronic, I had thrush. At that point, I had developed thrush that was recurrent in my mouth, which is crazy. That's severe immunocompromise. I was a few years into basically long haulers with cytomegalovirus. I just couldn't shake it. My titers would not come down. I was dying. I mean, I was dying. And he said, you have to eat a steak. And the allopathic community was talking about removing my spleen at the time because my platelets were plummeting. And he was like, you have to eat a steak. So I went and ate a steak. And it was so funny because that night I wanted to climb the walls. I hadn't had red meat in 10 years. And I literally wanted to climb the walls. I felt like Spider-Man. I felt so good. And soon found out that I was a type O blood type, which if you follow that at all, they're basically the carnivorous ones as well. And so I quickly just adapted. But unfortunately, I went to poultry for about the next, up until a few years ago. I was so poultry heavy. And now I won't even touch poultry. I'm so grossed out by it. They're slimy dinosaurs. I don't want to eat them. I just want beef.
Yeah, it shows. It's funny. I say idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. It's a mouthful to say, but I haven't seen something with that in a while. But it is funny, for people that don't know, the thought is that the dinosaurs evolved into or ended up being what's left of them are the birds. So yeah, it's kind of funny that they're there. And a lot of people in the carnivore community, more or less kind of get over poultry. It's kind of like, I don't eat much. And people are asking, what about chicken? I'm like, well, it's fine if you want to eat it, but most people, it loses its appeal once you start getting hooked on beef for some reason. I think beef is a better food, quite honestly, as far as the nutritionist supply. So now you get back on beef a couple years ago. So how does that change you?
Hugely. And I really doubled down on it. I would say about a year and a half ago, I was following your work and I was following some others. And due to high stress, the familial Crohn's disease decided to show itself in my body. My mom had almost died of Crohn's in 2019. My grandma did die of Crohn's, on the toilet died. It was terrible. And it reared its head summer of 2021. I think it was all the stress, getting attacked on social media constantly and my profession coming at me and all of it for pushing back against the narrative. So I couldn't hold any food down. Everything was ripping through me. It was terrible. It was ruining everything. And my muscle was falling off my body. It felt like it was just melting. My intimacy with my husband was falling apart. Everything was a mess. And I thought, oh God, I'm dying again. And I've had a lot of gastrointestinal issues. And I was out in the garden and I picked up some fresh grown arugula. I picked it, ripped the stalks up, and I'm holding it and I'm talking to my soon-to-be stepson, and he's a young man, tall built guy, but he had been very lean for a long time with gastrointestinal issues. I got him eating carnivore and he really went for it. And I hadn't seen him in a few months. And here he is standing in the garden with me, so tall and muscular and tan. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? You look great. Your vitality's up. Like, you look awesome. And he said, I've been eating a pound of meat a day. And then this guy's like 6'4". So he probably should be eating a lot more than that, but he was eating a pound of meat a day. He'd been following you. I got him turned on to you and your Instagram, and he was feeling fantastic. And while I'm talking to him holding this arugula, I'm getting this rash, that same rash I spoke of back when I was a young, vegetarian. This rash is descending down my forearms and it's all over my hands at this point, just from holding fresh cut arugula. And I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, I was about to put this in my mouth. Like, can you imagine the inflammation that would have caused in my gut? So I threw the arugula in a basket. I have not touched leafy greens since. And I went full bore into meat. I had an adjustment period that was rough. I think I was having some die-off. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, of just truly just eating beef, like maybe some shrimp sometimes, or maybe some chicken, but it's only when I'm out and I can't get anything else. And I find it to be really inferior on how it makes me feel and keeps my blood sugar regulated. Not so good. So year and a half later, tested my blood. My blood panels have never looked better. Just beautiful. Like, actually nourished. For the first time in my entire life at almost 49 years old, I feel nourished. I don't have white spots on my nails. I'm not covered in rashes. My gut doesn't hurt all the time. It's not bloated and distended all the time, unless I eat carbohydrates. Just so much better. So I'm a big fan, and I have tried to convince, I've gotten a lot of other doctors on it through, like, I send them to you, I send them to your content, and they convert and they report the same. And I think it's trickling down through their patient bases as well. So that's exciting. We're spreading it out, Shawn.
Yeah, I do see that. I mean, it's amazing to watch this grow, organically, because it's not like, it's not like there's a marketing, it's not like there's a multi-billion-dollar marketing campaign like there is for fake meat and, plant-based garbage that's out there. This is all organic. This is people on their own doing this stuff, and the results are quite interesting to see. Like you mentioned, you've got the 400-pound patient who thinks that some magic bullet injection is going to save them, and you've got the practitioners like, I can get a long enough needle. As long as I can get a long enough needle, I can get in there. And this is one of the things you're just like, it's like, you can work your magic. You can do the injection, but is it actually going to work? You can do the procedure. Is it actually going to work? Can I replace somebody's knee? I mean, I did knee replacements on patients that were, some of them that were 400 pounds, and it was a hell of a hard, difficult operation to do. You've got all these, we've got all these things we can accommodate these, these special retractors and special beds, and, you can do it. You can technically do it, but are you actually, in making that much difference? Probably not. And so this is the thing that I think we as a healthcare system or healthcare profession have to realize that enough is enough, and we have to start to take it back, because it very much has become, like you said, a used car salesman business aspect, and they teach you how to sell the deal. But, anyway.
And I think based on that too, is their healing time is really compromised the more adipose they've got to deal with, and it's very challenging for those regions to heal up well, I found. And so this is actually a great place where prolotherapy shines, because that patient can get some relief. It might be temporary, but they can get some relief with prolotherapy. Prolotherapy isn't going to cost an arm and a leg like stem cells will. It's much more affordable. And I have treated many obese patients with prolotherapy as we worked on the weight loss, because they were either not candidates for surgery because they were too obese and they were afraid to put them under because they were afraid they wouldn't wake up, or conversely, surgery wasn't a good option for them at the time. And so we were able to sort of, bring the pain down so we could get them moving again. And once we got them moving again, all kinds of good things happen.